to the males. So we're not talking about population level costs and benefits. We're talking about, like, to those males, what are the benefits to it, what are the costs, based on this infanticide hypothesis that was put forth in that box describing it. So let's try to be specific. So what did we get? So Sean, you got tapped for this one. What did you put for costs and benefits?
So some of the costs, they might actually cost some retaliation on his part for females that he's killing their children.
Sure.
And as a benefit, by killing the children that aren't his and then mating with the females, it gives him a better chance of passing on his genetic material.
Any other costs or benefits that you guys threw out? There's probably others we could throw in. These are two good important ones. Anything else you guys noticed or thought about? No? Yeah. Sure. So males are going to get injured. I sure hope they do. Jerks. Like, this is what they do. They're monkeys, you know, I mean, but at the same time, I don't know, I do feel entitled to judge them from my moral position. What else? Like other things that, I mean, we could throw just like, there's energy costs to doing this, right? So, could be energetic costs. I think when you said retaliation, you were talking more about like physical, like fighting back, resulting in injury. But I always thought, it would be reasonable to think there could be a social cost. So maybe, this is sort of another way of retaliating, is maybe the individual could suffer in social standing within the troop as a result of, behaving in this manner. There are ways in which that can happen. Certainly, you would expect perhaps females to be less cooperative with those individuals if they can identify individuals, which they probably can. I mean, these are hypothetical. We'd need to go and test and see if any of these things pan out. But they all it would make sense to me that there would be some substantial cost to the thing. But the benefit does seem really clear. So the benefit here is that if you have a female and she's nursing her offspring, that serves as basically a birth control. That's true for most mammals. And so as a result, it may take some time before she will ovulate again, and as a result, you have to wait. So if you get rid of that offspring, then she will ovulate again, and then maybe you have an opportunity to mate with her. So this is the argument here is that this is directly promoting reproductive success for these males. Maybe not in a way that's particularly nice to think about, but that is the argument for what's going on here. So is that okay? I mean, any questions, comments on it? Okay. So then it says, please rephrase the infanticide hypothesis using the gene's eye view of evolution. So, I don't know, what did you come up with this? I mean, for this one, this is kind of a... There's not one right answer, I will say, for this, but... I'm sorry, I got to come back over here. Can you say it again? Oops. I walked over here, so I might have missed your exact words, but I think that's what you're saying, right? Anybody have another phrasing they want to throw up there? Throw out? Not throw up. Sound good? I think that's the idea. There's different ways you could phrase this, but yeah, what you're trying to do is focus on the perpetuation of the genes. this kind of goes back to the selfish gene idea. In fact, they even cited Richard Dawkins, who's the author of this book called The Selfish Gene, which was pretty influential, especially as time has gone on. I think it was a popular science book, but it became very influential within evolutionary circles. It's just like a useful framework for thinking about it. So if we're thinking about organisms as kind of vehicles for genes, and genes is kind of you can almost think of them as these selfish entities, those genes that are able to get themselves perpetuated are going to be those that continue to exist within populations. So this is a behavior that may increase the chances that these infanticide genes, if there are genes that increase the likelihood of infanticide, maybe these are aggression genes or genes that decrease parental behaviors. There's some cool studies that we'll talk about later that show that increased progesterone levels, how does this work? I think it's increased progesterone in males results in lower parental behavior. So if something like that is happening within these males, that then in turn could increase the chances of infanticide and therefore increase the chances of these alleles being passed on. Sound good? I think another kind of cool point in there is that it also is not, like there's nowhere in any of these explanations are we thinking that the males are sitting there as monkeys. Not that monkeys aren't smart. I mean, the monkeys are clever little boogers, but we don't have to assume that males are thinking, gee, if I commit infanticide, there's a better chance I'm going to get to mate with that female in 3 months. And I'll get to mate with her sooner than if I didn't do this. Similarly with lions and such, you don't have to assume that the males are thinking about this. There could be genes that increase the likelihood of the behavior happening, and those will be favored by selection through these processes. Okay, so there's not really any like rational thought that's required. There could be insects that do the same kind of thing. There could be, I don't know how it would exactly work, but there could be bacteria that do the same kind of thing, because we don't have to assume some sort of conscious thought on the part of the animal. This is something where selection can shape behavior. Which I don't know, maybe that makes me less upset and irritated with those males on some level. I don't know, maybe not. They're still jerks. Is that all okay? Any questions on that one? You happy? All right, I think we got time for this one anyway. So also on a related note, so certainly female langurs clearly take a hit in their reproductive success. They just invested an enormous amount of energy. I hate this picture, but here's this poor little pup. Not pup, it's probably not the right word. This poor little baby langur. That this is its mom, and it has this massive back wound here. It's probably paralyzed. It's not going to make it. So she has just invested an enormous amount of resources, both material resources and time and energy, into getting this little guy to this point in its life, and that has all basically been undone and wasted by this male. So you would expect females to adopt countermeasures to try to prevent this. So they certainly will try to protect their offspring at the moment that an infanticide act is being done. But here's another cool little countermeasure. And this is going across other species, but I think it's interesting to ask, why might pregnant females mate with a new male as soon after a takeover? So you see this in these langurs where they'll mate with males as soon as as soon as those males kind of take over a troop and oust the other males. Females will often mate with the new males right away. There's this other finding that if you look at horses, if you send a mare off to mate with a stallion of some kind because you're trying to do some horse breeding, and then you bring the female back, she will often repeatedly mate with her home horse stallion upon arriving. And you see similar kinds of things in lions and other kinds of species where infanticide happens. So what did you put? Like, why would they be doing this? So this went to Alexander. That kind of makes sense, right? So it's kind of like you're allowing the males to self-select themselves. So you let them kind of battle it out at the top. Those individuals that are victorious are probably going to be really healthy. They're going to have genes that are good fits for the environment. They're going to be able to survive and reproduce well, and therefore if you mate with those new males, you're likely to secure resources for your pups or your offspring or your foals or whatever. Anybody put anything else for this one or have a different answer? Yeah. And I think this is one of the key points. So I think the first answer is a very good answer, except when if you're dealing with an individual that's already pregnant, it doesn't work, right? But this might explain if you're already pregnant. So if you as an already pregnant female mate with the new male, yeah, infanticide, that's awesome. Let me get rid of this break here. Okay, good. Yeah, so you can also have cases where pregnant females will be mating with that new male upon takeover. And so if you do that, then those males may be less likely to commit infanticide because it's possible that that could be their kid, or at least they might think that it's possible. Or even if they're not thinking about it, that there might be, you might hit some switch that turns off this infanticide behavior. And in fact, in these langurs, if a male langer has mated with a female, regardless of whether or not it actually turns out to be his offspring, they can't tell if it's actually their offspring. If you go and do like the genetic fingerprinting and stuff to track paternity, they can't tell, but those individuals will actually, they will be less likely to commit infanticide if they've actually mated with that female. And so by a female mating with a male, she can kind of protect her offspring regardless of whether or not it actually is his. So that's sort of a neat little countermeasure that she can do. Okay, we are out of time. I'm going to let you guys go because you have probably like 5 minutes to get to your next class. We'll see you this afternoon. We normally meet at 1:15. We're meeting at 1:30 today, though, because of the compressed schedule, so you have time to get there after the Mass.